Tonight, Egypt in the spotlight for its controversial niqab ban in schools. And meeting between Kim Jong-un and Putin that could affect world security. We cover stories about US's agreement to release Iran's frozen funds, post 9/11 era and rampant Islamophobia, and a Canadian media outlet accused of suppressing content. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aishah Ashraf. The Egyptian government has declared a prohibition on the wearing of niqabs in schools for the recent academic term. Egypt's education minister delivered the news on Monday. He says that students have the option to wear headscarves, but they must not conceal their faces. He is calling for students' independent decisions, free from external pressure in this regard. The minister has urged religious mentors and Arabic language teachers to prepare students with kindness and consideration, taking into account their psychological well-being. The issue of niqab wearing in Egyptian schools has been a long-standing debate. While the niqab holds religious significance for Muslim women worldwide, some in Egypt associate it with the banned Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood has been labeled as a terrorist organization in Egypt since 2013, when Egypt's president was overthrown due to links to the organization. The Brotherhood calls for complete implementation of Islamic law in Egypt. Human rights organizations argue that such restrictions on niqab infringe upon religious freedoms and civil liberties. Various public and private institutions in Egypt have already implemented bans on niqab wearing. Cairo University has prohibited teaching staff from wearing face veils since 2015, a rule upheld by an Egyptian court in 2020. North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, has arrived in Russia's Far East on Tuesday morning. Kim traveled to Russia in an armored train to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in person. Russia's need for munitions has focused its attention on North Korea, which is known for its abundant military resources and ability to produce large quantities quickly. Experts are calling Kim-Putin meeting significant. They say the meeting will affect global security beyond Ukraine. Analysts believe North Korea can offer Russia various weapons, including artillery pieces, multiple rocket launchers, small arms, and possibly even soldiers. The two leaders had last met in 2019, focusing on strengthening relations between the two countries and talks on denuclearization. 4 years later, a second meeting will focus on arms sales and technology transfer. This shift in focus is attributed to Russia's ongoing conflict with Ukraine, which has led to Moscow's international isolation and sanctions. Despite North Korea's traditionally transactional view of its relations with Moscow, Pyongyang has shown increasing support for Russian actions in Ukraine. North Korea's support for Russia raises questions about the costs and implications of this alliance. Russia's need for military equipment could lead to a transfer of technology, particularly in the nuclear field. Observers emphasize Russia's role as a major supporter of North Korea, possibly more than China, raising concerns about accelerating North Korean weapons programs. The US government has approved the transfer of $6 billion of frozen Iranian funds from South Korea to Qatar. The move will allow for the release of 5 American citizens imprisoned in Iran. To expedite the move, an exemption has been granted to international banks to ensure that they will not be subject to the U.S. sanctions if they facilitate the transfer. The U.S. has also agreed to release 5 Iranian nationals being held in the country. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has approved the sanctions waiver. The decision has been criticized in several quarters, including by Republicans who argue that it strengthens Iran's economy, while the country remains a threat to the US and its allies. Two other senators have voiced their concerns, accusing the U.S. of indirectly supporting Iran's alleged ties to terrorism. The money transfer was a key part of the agreement, as four American prisoners were placed under house arrest last month. Because of existing U.S. sanctions, several European countries have reservations about participating in the fund transfer. Blinken is calling the move in the interest of U.S. national security. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has expressed disappointment with the weak statement on the Russia Ukraine conflict during the recent G20 summit. Trudeau has objected to the countries taking a different view than that of Canada and thus not addressing the matter head on. The G20 statement did not mention Russia by name, but it did call on all states to refrain from the threat or use of force to obtain territory. It also called for the immediate and unimpeded delivery of grain and fertilizer from Russia to Ukraine and an end to attacks on infrastructure. Trudeau also confirmed that Canada does not recognize the quote, sham elections held by Russia and Ukraine. He called the elections a cynical attempt to legitimize military conquest under the guise of democracy. Trudeau's return from the summit was due Sunday. However, he was forced to stay in New Delhi because his plane was found to have a technical malfunction. For more on the sentencing of a former Pakistani cricketer by Dutch court, stay tuned. Over 2 decades after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the U.S. Muslim community still grapples with discrimination and hate. Hussam Ayloush, CEO of the Council on American Islamic Relations in California, asserts that Islamophobia has embedded itself within the fabric of American racism. He highlights that almost 1 million Muslims reside in California, where prejudice remains rampant. There are around 5 million Muslims in the US. More than half of Muslim students in California experience bullying due to their faith. The government watch list includes nearly 1.6 million individuals, predominantly with Muslim sounding names. The aftermath of 9/11 witnessed the US government giving agencies like the FBI and CIA more authority to surveil Muslims, especially those from countries such as Syria, Libya, and Sudan. The period post 9/11 saw 1,617% increase in hate crimes against Muslims. Ayloush suggests that the George W. Bush administration sees 9/11 as an opportunity to portray Muslims as the enemy, leading to widespread scrutiny and suspicion against them. Ayloush believes that Trump's presidency intensified Islamophobia, but he also acknowledges that reporting of discrimination incidents has increased since 9/11. However, he says the challenge of completely eradicating Islamophobia or racism still remains. He emphasizes the collective responsibility to stand against these prejudices. He says passive acceptance makes one complicit in the problem. A former Pakistani cricketer has been sentenced to 12 years in prison for inciting the murder of a Dutch right-wing extremist. Prosecutors say 37-year-old Khalid Latif offered 3 million rupees, around $25,000, in an online video as a bounty for the killing of Dutch far-right politician Geert Wilders. The video dates back to 2018. Wilders had tried to organize a contest for caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad. He is a controversial figure who has been accused of inciting hatred against Muslims. He has also called for a ban on the Quran. The Dutch court in The Hague tried Latif in absentia, saying he is unlikely to serve the sentence because Pakistan has refused to extradite him. Wilders, who has been under 20-hour guard since 2004, welcomes the verdict. He is calling on the Dutch government to put strong pressure on Pakistan to cooperate in Latif's arrest and extradition. As a court in the Canadian province of Ontario has opened the trial of Nathaniel Veltman, prosecutors argue he mowed down the Afzaal family only because of their Islamic faith. Veltman, allegedly a white supremacist, is accused of killing a Muslim family of 4 in London, Ontario in June 2021. Veltman had bought the truck 2 weeks before the attack. On June 6th, he set out with a specific goal: to find and kill Muslims. The 2 women in the Afzaal family were wearing traditional Pakistani clothing. The pickup truck, reportedly driven by Veltman, ran over the curb, drove onto the sidewalk, and rammed into the family. Veltman has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The 3-month trial will shed light on the events leading up to the attack and the motive. The Afzaal family, which included 15-year-old Yumna Afzaal, her parents Madiha Salman and Salman Afzaal, and the family's mother Talat Afzaal, were on an evening walk in London, Ontario. A Canadian-American media outlet is facing controversy for suppressing content. The news comes after Vice Media momentarily posted, then removed, a documentary critical of Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. The video, inside Saudi Crown Prince's ruthless quest for power, went private after amassing over 750,000 views within 4 days. The documentary delves into the Crown Prince's alleged roles in torture of kidnapped Saudi elites and connections to the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Vice had previously covered the Khashoggi case, critically. But the outlet's recent content seems to reflect a more favorable stance towards Saudi Arabia, likely influenced by their growing commercial ties. This evolving relationship traces back to 2017, when Vice co-founder Shane Smith reportedly met Mohammed bin Salman. By 2018, Vice collaborated with the Saudi Research and Media Group on promotional videos for the country. Vice has now established an office in Riyadh. Responding to concerns over their Riyadh expansion, a Vice representative insisted on their editorial independence. He cited the safety of Saudi-based staff as a reason for the documentary's removal. In September 2022, the New York Times reported that Vice is considering engaging in a deal with a Saudi media company. The deal was officially announced at the start of this year. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Sound Vision, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.